Earth is considered the home of humanity. But what if it is also the most fascinating field of research in the entire universe? According to the Akasha-Interviews, highly advanced beings observe our thoughts, our fears, and even our body-related frequency patterns. This video explores the provocative thesis that our development is not a coincidence, but part of a long-term cosmic experiment. Hello, my name is Frank Halfer, and in the Akasha-Interviews I work as an information medium, documenting and publishing questions and answers about consciousness, humanity, and our place in the universe. With that said, let's turn to the question. Entry A. 233. The Moon. Part 4. When beings decide to live on the Moon, there is always a reason for doing so. Some reasons involve the study of the living beings on Earth, and we also mean that most beings conduct this research from the Moon. On the Moon, they have the opportunity to be very close to the objects of their research. By this we mean the following. Many researchers sit at a desk and leaf through books in their field of study. Would it not be much better for these researchers to study their field directly on site? We say yes, and many researchers on the Moon share this view. The living beings on Earth are very special, and by this we particularly mean humans. No human race lives the way the humans of Earth do. Many researchers consider Earth to be a paradise for their field of study, because humans do not know that they are not alone. Almost all intelligent species on other planets at least understand that the universe teems with life, except for the humans of Earth. Many peculiarities come together on Earth that make it something truly extraordinary. On the one hand, humans have no direct contact with the spiritual world, and on the other hand, Earth stands under a special protection that concerns humans. Many intelligent species are telepathically inclined, and almost all beings communicate in this way, except humans. Once long ago, they were capable of doing so, but that was a long time ago, and much has changed since then. Because earthly humans do not possess this ability, they must develop in a very different way than beings who are born with it. The earthly human represents a great exception here, and we also mean that it is intended this way. Those responsible once decided to no longer allow human beings on Earth this form of communication, so that these beings could develop differently from all other beings. There are many intelligent species in the universe that also do not communicate telepathically, but these beings are all very peaceful, so their potential for violence is much lower. Compared to all other worlds on which human-like beings live, Earth is the most brutal place in the entire universe. Only here do peace and war lie so close together, and most humans believe they live only this one life, and that afterwards everything is over. You live in constant fear. You fear everything, and when beings eventually no longer feel this fear, they are inwardly very mature, and such maturity can best be experienced by a being on Earth. Earthly humans are not condemned to live in this manner until the end of their days, for they have the opportunity to grow and, as a collective, to release these fears. When that day comes, earthly humans will automatically develop abilities they currently do not possess. Until then, many researchers on the Moon will study the life of humanity and generate a great deal of insight about how humans are, and what drives them to do what they do. Many of these researchers observe individual humans on Earth. These individuals usually know nothing about it, but their lives are observed closely, and many tests are conducted with them. We have already spoken about masters and teachers of a person conducting tests so that the person can grow and become a better human being. These tests are initiated by the spiritual world. The researchers on the Moon proceed similarly, but here as well it applies that the human has free will and must not be forced into any action. The tests usually consist of observing how humans react to unusual situations. By this, we also mean sightings of UFOs in the true sense. Do the individuals freeze, or are they open and curious? The persons selected for the tests are carefully chosen in consultation with the spiritual world, and the actions never go so far that the life plan of a person would be altered. If a contact appears helpful, these individuals are contacted by the researchers. The contact does not have to be physical. Often it occurs mentally, whereby the person hears another voice in their mind, and thus the first conversations begin. Not all researchers have a human appearance, so we mean that most contacts begin in this manner. Humans were not always as open as they are today, but even in earlier times there were many contacts with humans, though today it is much easier. Once such contact has been established, the person becomes accustomed to the researcher. By this, we mean the following. If the human continues to desire this contact, the researcher will remain the contact for that person throughout their entire life. Many researchers live much longer than a person on Earth, so the researcher accompanies the person until the end of their life. Not every selected human has a connection to the spiritual world, so the researchers are also in direct contact with the masters and teachers of a person. All information exchanged between them always has the highest good of the person in mind, so that the masters and teachers have the opportunity to guide the person accordingly. This is often applied and has so far always been very successful. What exactly happens during such a contact? The person will immediately hear a voice in their head that does not seem to be their own. Often the person is greeted and asked how they are doing. From this, the first conversation arises, and usually many more conversations follow. If the person expresses interest in the researcher, meaning the person wishes to know more about the researcher, these conversations deepen further. At a certain point, the researcher may ask the person whether they would like to experience more, meaning whether they would like to maintain not only telepathic, but also real contact. If the person agrees, a meeting is arranged at which the researcher or a representative establishes physical contact. The beings selected for the first meeting always have a very human appearance, and many individuals would not notice any difference. Nevertheless, the person is surprised when an extraterrestrial being actually stands before them. At the latest, when presenting their transport vehicle, all doubts disappear. Since many researchers do not have a human appearance, the first contact with the actual researcher is somewhat delicate. The vast majority of researchers resemble the so-called greys, so here the person must first dissolve their reservations in order for the contact to continue. Once the person has resolved these reservations, nothing stands in the way of future contacts. Researchers are always pleased when they meet such an open person, for everything is much easier when a person knows whom they are dealing with. There are not many humans who maintain such contacts, and those who do will experience things that appear unimaginable to most people. What exactly do the researchers study? They are interested in how society progresses, and they study this both on a large and a small scale. Furthermore, the beings examine how mental abilities develop. Many peoples possess particular abilities that arise from how their society is structured and how general education is conducted. The Japanese are very composed and can concentrate well. The Germans are very obedient. They stand behind a cause and defend it fiercely. The Americans, by which we mean the indigenous people, have always had a spiritual gift, and the Russians are very down to earth. Many of these traits are reflected in the members of the respective societies, so it can be said that the environment shapes a young person more than you currently assume. Much of what a person does has nothing to do with their origin, but there are always certain tendencies that can also be seen in frequency patterns. The researchers can read the frequency pattern of a person, and tasks are also related to how these frequency patterns change over time. For this purpose, the person is given obvious tasks that they must solve, and something unusual happens in the process. The frequency pattern changes continuously, and when a task is solved, the frequency spectrum as a whole has expanded. By this we mean the following. When the person has mastered a task, the frequency spectrum becomes richer in patterns, and this is how growth occurs. Whenever you solve tasks that demand much from you, the frequency spectrum changes and the person experiences growth. Whoever experiences growth automatically gains power through the universe. The more power a person gains, the more capable they become of accomplishing something new. We have mentioned this many times before, and the researchers observe this development. They determine not only the frequency spectra of individuals, but also of families, nations, and the entire planet Earth. That is, the frequency spectrum of all earthly humanity. With this data, they can predict human behavior and determine when humans will acquire new abilities that would represent an evolutionary leap. We emphasize that humans will not develop into a new species, but they will mature and learn new abilities that will then automatically be adopted by their offspring. Telepathy is such an ability that will one day become a normal capability for you humans. The researchers already recognize the frequency patterns within humanity today that will one day trigger this. We are speaking of a time when you will no longer be alive, when this ability becomes increasingly present in your society, and one day all newborns will possess it. The researchers have observed humanity since the very beginning on Earth. Extraterrestrial life was never a major topic for societies, but in your time, it is increasingly coming into focus because many technological achievements make life on other worlds easier and represent a possibility for development for earthly humans. Many already believe today that there must be more than humanity on Earth. One day, this perceived so-called uniqueness will disappear from the minds of all humans, and the changing frequency spectrum of humanity will accelerate the development of new abilities. The researchers are working on how humanity could be guided in a humane way so that this frequency spectrum will one day become reality. Much in your society has, among other things, been advanced by these researchers. By this we mean that when technological achievements seemingly appear out of nowhere, many levers have been set in motion so that humanity can progress. This sometimes also has to do with the aforementioned contacts, though this is rather rare. Humanity is meant to develop, and these researchers are working toward that. It should also be said that the researchers are never responsible for violent conflicts, for their path is the path of a researcher, and that path has never had anything to do with violence. We would like to emphasize that some of you are already speaking with these researchers today, because many of you are being observed. How could you recognize whether you belong to this group? If you repeatedly have vivid conversations in your meditations that seem to test you again and again, then the probability is high that you belong to them. A contact would only come about very late, because the person would first be intensively tested and prepared for this new experience. We say already today, some of you belong to this, but not all conversations are based on experiencing a later personal contact, because many researchers simply enjoy talking. And humans are also very talkative once they have gained trust in such a contact. Many researchers also merely test reactions to certain topics. There are so many humans on Earth. Some have this contact and know about it, but the vast majority does not. This will continue for some time until humanity discovers that it is only one among a multitude of intelligent species. And then there will also be official contacts. In the next part, we will once again discuss the lunar stations, especially their technology, which may appear very interesting to you. This entry, along with many others, is available on my website. The content is published in German, but modern browsers make translation straightforward. You'll find a direct link to this blog entry and further helpful information in the video description.